time, 5 o'clock.
AP Network News. I'm David Melendi. More U.S. Marines have been wounded in Lebanon. AP's Jerry LaBelle in Beirut reports 3 Marines were hurt in renewed shelling of their positions at the Beirut airport today.
Mortar shells hit the in and around the Marine positions about 7:30 tonight local time. 3 Marines were injured. None of them very seriously. 2 of the wounded were evacuated by helicopter to the carrier Iwo Jima offshore.
As Congress returned from its summer recess today, there were new calls for President Reagan to give the House and Senate more of a say in the role of the peacekeepers in Lebanon. Senator Lowell Weicker says the Marines shouldn't be used to help Lebanese troops fight a civil war.
It should be made clear that our presence there was to enable them to form a stable government, or rather be subjected to the pressures of outside military forces. If they want to use our presence and our time to engage in internal civil strife, that is something I would not support.
Congress today took up a resolution denouncing the Soviet Union for shooting down an unarmed Korean jetliner with 269 people aboard. The Senate is to vote on the measure Wednesday, and the House is to vote on a similar resolution later in the week. The Soviet Union has expelled an American diplomat after accusing him of spying. The State Department announced that the U.S. had expelled 2 Soviet diplomats last month for spying, hinting that today's move by the Soviet Union may be in retaliation for that. The Agriculture Department had some bad news today. It announced predictions of reduced crop yields this year, as low as only about half of last year's yields, largely because of the summer drought. Agriculture Secretary John Block says it should cause no substantial food price hikes, however.
The effects of this drought should only add about 1 to 1.5% to the increase in food prices at the supermarket in 1984. And I would repeat, 1% or 1.5%. That is not very much.
Block said the government's payment-in-kind program also helped cause that reduced output. This is AP Network News. The biggest teacher strike in the nation has ended. The St. Louis School Board and striking teachers have agreed to return to the bargaining table, and school system spokesman John Forstall says the teachers have agreed to return to work while the talks continue.
The teachers have decided to end the strike. They're going back into negotiations after the federal judge issued the temporary restraining order last week. Approximately 53% decided to show up for work today. So the union officials decided to end the strike and return to the negotiating table.
President Reagan says he'll nominate an Hispanic American to be Treasurer of the United States. Reagan says his nominee will be Katherine Ortega, a former bank president, but not just because she's Hispanic.
Of her many achievements, I might mention one in particular. As past president and director of the Santa Ana Bank, she was the first woman president of a California bank. So you can see that she's being nominated not just because she is Hispanic, but because she is highly qualified.
WMCA weather, if you're Chicago-bound on American Airlines tonight, it's partly sunny in the Windy City with a temperature reading of 74 degrees at the moment, while here in the Big Apple, it's 83 degrees, humidity 47%, and partly cloudy. Cloudy and mild tonight. Tomorrow, cloudy, not so warm, with a chance of rain in the morning, then occasional sunshine in the afternoon. Wednesday, sunny and cooler. It is now 86 degrees in Sayreville, New Jersey, and 57 on your AM dial. Here now, the business and market update.
This is the Wall Street Journal report. I'm Dave Burkett. Lower crop forecast. Details in a moment. Looking for a no-risk investment that's bound to pay off? Consider the Wall Street Journal television report. Spend 30 minutes, and in return, you'll get business news that helps you make investment decisions.
Recent reports have told why medical stocks are in the pink, what's ahead for tax-free industrial bonds, and who the players are in direct broadcast satellites.
Throw in expert analysis of key economic trends, and it adds up to business news you won't want to miss. Business news that makes you better prepared for key decisions.
It also keeps you posted on interest rates, inflation, and tax plans in Washington. Important information you can use for your career and your finances.
All in the Wall Street Journal report, a source you can trust for business news that's right on the money. Check local listings for channel and time.
The Wall Street Journal television report. One investment that pays off.
The Agriculture Department forecasts lower corn and soybean harvests. Corn forecast to be down 48% from last year's record high, while soybean production dropped 33%. The government's payment-in-kind program and the summer drought in the Midwest are the main factors in the lower crop forecast, analysts say, which should translate into higher prices for food next year. In New York, silver plunged 34 cents to $11.83 the ounce, while gold lost $7.80 to $405.30. The dollar surged on the New York Foreign Exchange. Citibank has been fined the most ever levied against an American company for violating anti-boycott laws. The Commerce Department says Citibank must pay $323,000. On Wall Street, the Dow Industrials lost more than 10.5 points in heavy trading to 1,229.07. Profit-taking pushed the Dow down, analysts say. This is the Wall Street Journal report.
In sports, the Yankees try to save face tonight against the Milwaukee Brewers at the stadium. The Mets play the Phillies in Philadelphia, also under the lights. In Monday night NFL football, the San Diego Chargers meet the Chiefs in Kansas City. In NASL playoffs, the Cosmos try to stay alive when they kick against the Manic in Montreal tonight. And that's 57 WMCA News. I'm Bert Knapp, top of the hour. To you coming up, more of Barry Farber for Bob Grant.
Is there a nicer way to be ushered back onto the air than through Bert Knapp's genial overtures? Bert, thank you very much. I'm Barry Farber, filling in for Bob Grant. My temper can stretch in any direction that yours can. My expertise may not, but who knows? I'll strip to the waist in leotards of bright pink and fight you. We'll do combat together in a gentlemanly way. Call me with your disagreements. Call me with your agreements. The disagreements are, of course, more fun. I don't want to censor you merely because you agree with me. But if you disagree with me, then we need each other more than those who just belly up to each other and stroke each other and intertwine congenially. My number is in New York, 343-WMCA, 343-WMCA. In Long Island, 883-WMCA, 883-WMCA. In Westchester, 237-WMCA, 237-WMCA. In New Jersey, 360-WMCA, 360-WMCA. And the New York number again, 343-WMCA. That is 343-WMCA.
The Massachusetts Institute of Computer Technology Marching Band sings the Kaypro Fight Song.
Kaypro, you got this drive, built in for 1595. Complete with green screen monitor and all of that software to try. Kaypro, hats off to you. Thousands less than Apple II. You're our all-pro, Kaypro 2. Kaypro, we're loyal to you. Hoorah!
You might not remember that Kaypro makes a business computer with built-in disk drives, monitor, and functional software that lists for just $1,595. But you will.
You're our all-pro, Kaypro 2. Kaypro, we're loyal to you. Hoorah!
At Astro Datsun, they know you deserve the best service possible. With Astro Datsun's fully equipped parts and service department, including factory-trained technicians, service does not end with a sale. But how else would one of the metropolitan area's largest Datsun dealers and a winner of the Dealer Award of Merit think? Now, Astro Datsun is proud to present two new awesome cars for 1984. The redesigned Nissan Maxima and the soon-to-be-released 300ZX. Cars that deliver mileage with style, efficiency, and excitement. So visit Astro Datsun at 164-24 Northern Boulevard in Flushing, Queens, 3 miles west of the Cross Island Parkway, and learn about their leasing and used car departments. Call Astro Datsun, 212-359-7202. That's 212-359-7202. At Astro Datsun, they are driven.
The following announcement paid for by the Council of Supervisors and Administrators. Ted Ellsberg, President.
I'm Ted Ellsberg, President of the Council of Supervisors and Administrators. Our public schools need your support, and they've earned it. A generation ago, only a handful of children graduated from high school, and only a few of those went on to complete college. Today, more than 80% of our nation's youth finish high school. Colleges are graduating 3 times the number of students as compared to the 1950s. More women and minorities are in college than ever before. New York City public schools are still the path upward. Reading and math scores are continuing to get better. Principals, assistant principals, and all other members of the Council of Supervisors and Administrators are committed to improving instruction so that our children will succeed. Support the New York City public schools and help us give our youngsters the best education possible.
Barry Farber filling in for Bob Grant. Welcome to WMCA. Hello?
Hello, Barry?
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Mike.
Yes, Mike.
I have a problem with your proposed new organization. The title is bothering me.
Why?
You call it United Free Nations. Now, the word united and the word free seem to be in collision in my mind.
Why?
I have a problem with that. Well, if entities are united, for example, the states in our union are called the United States. But we recall a time 100 years ago when many of them tried to disunite, and it led to violence and warfare to hold it together. And Abraham Lincoln kept referring to the Union, holding the Union together. And it took force to keep the states united. And up to this very day, we've seen incidents where holding the states together or enforcing the law of the nation upon all the various states that have different ideas about, for example, integration or segregation or things of that sort.
Mike, I would love to sit beside you at a dinner party, but I would hate for you to be my political science teacher. I'll bet you care about the difference between a democracy and a republic, don't you?
Oh, sure.
If you were my sergeant in the Army, I bet you'd take away my weekend pass for 4 weeks if I called a rifle a gun.
No, I wouldn't do that, Barry. I would understand the meaning of it. So I'm not being semantic, but I am interested in the concepts that underlie the word.
Well, obviously you're gaming me because nobody, I don't even think the world's federalists have really proposed the global earth, the whole ball being one country.
And I agree with that.
I agree with that too.
Okay.
However, certainly a voluntary association of free countries can't really offend you. If it's a name you don't like, fine, I'll take some other name. I don't care about the name.
This word united is an abused word. The nations of the world are not united. I don't think they ever have been. And if they were united, in what concept are they united?
No, but see, that's what we call it. That means, like, suppose I write a book, and I give it to my editor, and I say, I hope he likes it, I hope he likes it, I hope he likes it. And the editor calls me back and says, Barry, I have a problem with your book, and my heart sinks. And I say, why? And he says, well, it is double space, and I really wanted it triple space, and the margins are a little too narrow for my new glasses. But outside of that, the book is great. Then my heart rises again, you see. Forget the words. I can agree with you on that. How do you like the notion of leaving the United Nations with only token membership left? We'll keep a carpenter and a gardener and an outfielder to be named at a later date. That's our American delegation to the UN. We'll pay our dues. We won't pay anybody else's. But then we will go out and gather the democracies into one big organization. Great Britain, Ireland, Israel, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Western Europe, from Scandinavia down to the Rock of Gibraltar, Iceland. Wouldn't that be nice?
There's a problem with it. It's nice in concept, but then it creates two organizations that inevitably will be in conflict.
Leave the other one to the dictators and the murderers and the Gaddafis and these people who love dictatorship or who can't work their way out. Use the United Free Nations, use the new organization as a magnet. In other words, once the United States transfers its thrust from the present United Nations to a new organization dedicated to the spirit of 1945. In other words, we've lost time, folks, but we don't have another year to lose. We're going back to the original notion of a family of decent nations. Sorry it can't be a worldwide family. Sorry there are so many indecent nations. Sorry there are so many tyrannical indecent nations. Sorry there are so many aggressive tyrannical indecent nations. But we're going to gather what decent nations remain for the purpose of trying to preserve ourselves and maybe lure some nations that are on the fence over onto the side of decency, as indeed Spain has been lured, Portugal has been lured, Greece has been lured from dictatorial regimes to democratic regimes. Doesn't that thrill you?
The idea thrills me. My problem with it is that if we then cut off communication with the dictators and all the others and isolate them, are we leading in, and perhaps sending it into the Soviet camp permanently? Are we then truly splitting the world, although it's certainly split in spheres of influence now? We have the West and the East, etc. But how difficult will it be?
Oh, I'm not
to communicate and have a dialogue if we then set up a separate organization and exclude the others?
Mike, I'm running a radio show. I'm trying to hold Bob Grant's audience intact until he gets back. My surveys tell me that 44% of the audience goes to sleep when you use words like bilateral. But I've got to try it here to answer you. I'm not talking about ending bilateral and regional arrangements and meetings with other countries, including dictatorships. I'm talking about the United Nations. The United Nations has no force. It's not that important. The United Nations, if we were to withdraw, mind you, I say I would leave it, I would remain a member, but if we devote our energies that we now spend on the United Nations to building a real United Nations of united, free, decent, democratic nations, then we could still have whatever diplomacy we're having with any other country in the world. I mean, the Book of the Month Club probably has more global clout than the United Nations.
Yes. But what I think is that we should stick with it and try to build it and try to improve on it. After all, its history is only 35 years. And, of course, the history of civilization is 10,000 years. Why don't we be a little bit more patient and try to work within the existing framework to try to convince the nations that we disagree with in terms of philosophy and ideology and try to bring them around to the democratic way, including Russia. I have a feeling in my heart that over the long run, Russia is going to soften its position. Of course, right now, everybody's angry over what happened in the last week, and it's just, as you expressed it so brilliantly in the last several days that you've been on the air talking about it, how it's absolutely an abhorrence to the family of nations, this act on their part. But over the long run, they're human beings, and I think they can be won over. I think we have to never give up the fight and maintain vigilance in trying to preserve our democracy and sell it to the rest of the world.
I would consider
it will win out.
I would consider it a war crime to interfere with optimism like yours, and I've got to go anyhow. So let's just call this a clinch and call me again.
Love talking to you, Barry.
Same here, Mike. Take care.
Thank you.
The following is from the owner's manual of one of the most popular personal computers.
DOS formats diskettes at 9 sectors per track, which increases capacity.
If this isn't your idea of fun reading, you should know about the Eagle personal computer. The Eagle PC has highly advanced technical features, like a very large mainboard memory. But the best feature is that to operate an Eagle PC, you don't need a memory like a computer.
Diskettes created by DOS version 1 or DOS...
Instead of a lot of complicated commands, you just plug the Eagle in.
Also usable with DOS version 2.0.
Instead of technical jargon, the Eagle PC talks to you in English. If you need help, you just press the key that says, help. With the IBM-compatible Eagle PC, you learn to compute by computing. So while you're still reading about other personal computers,
in Chapter 6 for more information.
The Eagle PC will have you flying. For the name of your nearest Eagle dealer, call 800-538-8157, extension 938.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on Air New Zealand. Our route tonight will take us by way of Honolulu,
2,553,
Auckland,
4,406,
and on into Sydney.
1,343.
We'll be cruising at an altitude of...
Excuse me, what are you doing?
Figuring out my mileage.
Figuring out? But why?
For United Airlines.
But this is Air New Zealand. Why United?
Well, because Air New Zealand and United are united in the United Mileage Plus program.
Oh.
See, all these Air New Zealand miles go right into my mileage Mileage Plus account. And since we're in Pacific class...
Yeah, isn't it terrific?
I get a 25% bonus. First class is 50%.
That's a pretty good deal.
I know even better one.
Oh, what's that?
After I get all these miles in my Mileage Plus account,
Yes?
I can use them on Air New Zealand.
One more question.
What's that?
How far is it to Fiji?
Oh, far enough. Can I buy you a drink?
They're free.
Oh.
Air New Zealand. Daily 747s from Los Angeles to Australia and New Zealand.
This high holiday tradition is brought to us by Goodman's New York's #1 noodle since 1865.
One of the most common misconceptions about the high holidays concerns the way repentance and forgiveness work. For there are many who believe that simply by attending synagogue services on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur, and by confessing one's sins to God, one automatically receives forgiveness. Well, in the Jewish tradition, it's not nearly that easy. For one thing, anyone who sinned with the idea that he or she will receive forgiveness on the holidays will receive no forgiveness. And perhaps more important, in the Jewish tradition, one cannot be forgiven by God for any wrong done to another person. One may repent and seek forgiveness from God for a transgression against God alone, such as failing to observe a ritual commandment. But when it comes to a wrong done to another human being, one may not ask forgiveness in the synagogue until one has sought forgiveness from the injured person. On WMCA, I'm Rabbi Mark Golub.
The High Holy Days are a solemn time for Jewish families around the world, a time to fast together and reflect on a heritage steeped in tradition. Goodman's has been part of family tradition for over 100 years, passed down from generation to generation. The Goodman name means reliability in households everywhere. The knowledge that when you buy Goodman's, you're buying the highest quality egg noodles and noodle products. So this high holiday season, when you and your family break the Yom Kippur fast, maintain tradition. Use Goodman's wide egg noodles in your noodle kugel. No other egg noodle can match the taste and consistency of Goodman's. This same high quality is found in all Goodman's products, with a full line of egg, barley, and alphabet noodles, bow ties, macaroni, and spaghetti products. So remember the Goodman tradition now and throughout the year whenever you serve quality foods in your home. Goodman's, New York's #1 noodle since 1865.
57 WMCA, New York, New York.
I'm Barry Farber. I have here an ad that interests me very much. It would be unfair for me to mention the name of the company, but here's something else I want to do this week. My beloved Lily came up to me the other day and held out some of the ugliest things I ever saw in my life. She said, "Barry, do you know what these are?" I said, "Well, they look like shin guards if you're going to play soccer with King Kong." She said, "No, they are for hanging upside down. They are gravity boots." And she proceeded to go into the back room, which we've converted into a kind of a home gymnasium, and demonstrate hanging upside down. I talked to some medical doctors. I talked to Gary Noe, who you all know very well, and they all tested. Gary Noe himself hangs upside down. He's been doing it for a year. He says it has very positive benefits. What do you know about hanging upside down? I don't want to talk about that right now, but that's on my agenda between now and when we part company Friday at 7. WMCA, Barry Farber, your turn. Hello? Hello? All right. See, that background noise haunts me. That sort of reminds me of the background noise on those Soviet tapes, or on those intercepted tapes, communications with the Soviet pilots. WMCA, Barry Farber, your turn.
Yes, Barry. I'd just like to tell you, if you have more stations like you or more editorials like you, then the people of the United States will be more convinced about the Russians. Take the Washington Post this Sunday. I wrote that some pilots were complaining that the navigation lights were not working too well. Why do they tell the United States people? Average United States citizen is convinced that the pilot probably didn't answer to with the navigation lights, and that why the Russian people had to shoot them down. When actually on the tapes, the pilot says that the navigation lights are working. So we only need more stations and editorials like yours. And the United States average citizens will be convinced.
Let me guess for a minute. You sound to me to have a trace of a Slavic accent. Are you by any chance from the Soviet Union?
Oh, no way. By the way, if you want, I'll tell you where I met you. Would that be okay?
Please.
In a restaurant in Williamsburg.
Restaurant in Williamsburg.
Came back to pick up a package.
Oh, Oh, yes. Okay. I understand. I remember now. Hey, thank you very much for your encouraging words.
Okay, Bob.
Take care now. WMCA, Barry Farber for Bob Grant. Your turn.
Hello, Barry.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of just what the proper retribution would be against the Soviet Union. And I don't think canceling the wheat contract or an embargo or a breaking of diplomatic relations would do the trick. But I think what they should do, the FCC should cancel the broadcasting license of the 3 TV networks. That would help. That would have really hurt them.
You're mean.
That's right.
You are awfully mean.
Well, that's the impression I'm getting.
No, you are mean, and what's worse than mean, you are sarcastic.
Well, you watch them the way I read it, the way I see it. That's the only feeling that you get.
That the Soviets rely on the 3 American networks to do their work for them. Is that correct?
You read the book The Spikes, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Uh-huh.
I believe it. I believe that that's gospel to me. I really do. I think that's what's going on.
Well, by the way, what sanctions would you impose, seriously?
Well, I don't think, in reality, I don't think there's much more they can do than what President Reagan has already done. We would cutting off our nose despite our face, cutting the wheat deal. I mean, that's a political move also. In reality, I can't see him doing something like that. There isn't really, what we can really do.
I know what we could do. The president hasn't even thought about it.
What?
There is one major undone thing, and even though, a lot of true words are spoken through false teeth, you called me with a very funny line. This is not like a nightclub where you get the laugh you deserve. I think your suggestion was classically funny. I'm going to break up a dinner party or two with it, I promise you. But the one thing we can do, which really touches the quick of the problem, touches the core of the problem, and that is to announce the Reagan Doctrine. President Reagan would go down as the greatest president in the world if he were simply to get up and say, my fellow Americans. By the way, there's some awful tunnel-type sound on the line here. I wonder if...
I don't hear it here.
No, all right, fine. No problem. I'll talk over it. Wouldn't it be great if the President of the United States were to say, this act can only be caused in a closed society, a society which remains unaccountable to its own people. This society is trying to extend its dominion over societies that are not yet closed. Some of those societies very close to us in Central America. In order to prevent incidents of this kind from plaguing mankind, the United States, which is the strongest country in the free world, we have an obligation to the planet Earth. We are, from this point forward, pledging, not just admitting, we are pledging, we are proclaiming that we are going to do at least as much to spread the forces of freedom around the world as the Soviet Union has traditionally done to spread the forces of enslavement around the world. Can you imagine if we did for those who want democracy what the Soviets do for those who want communism? I mean, can you imagine the Afghans getting aid? Can you imagine the forces that want to fight off communism getting aid? Now, I wish there were time to discuss this with the other side, because I'm very familiar with their points. They say, Mr. Farber, do you seriously contend that Guatemala is a democracy? And I say no. Do you seriously contend that El Salvador is a democracy? I'd say no. I'd say, but do you seriously contend that any territory conquered by communism has ever been redeemed, has ever been allowed to vote again or to choose its form of government? I'm not defending democracy in Guatemala. I am defending the opportunity for eventual democracy in Guatemala. That opportunity is lost if the communists take Guatemala. Same with El Salvador. If my friend on the other side of the argument says, Mr. Farber, have you any grounds for your myopic, naive, sugar candy, spun, raisin view of geopolitics? Where has this democracy ever eventuated? And I would say, well, Greece was about to be taken over by the communists, and we sent, Harry Truman sent General Van Fleet and enough help, and Greece was saved, and Greece is today a democracy. South Korea is much more democratic today. It does not yet live up to my concept of a free country, but South Korea is today vastly more, it always was more free than North Korea. mean, you know, South Korea, you go from North Korea to South Korea, you think you've gone to Disney World. South Korea is prosperous, very prosperous, and quite a bit freer than it was under Syngman Rhee, and a lot freer than North Korea. So I can prove with examples that we have defended, not democracy. When we went to war to defend Korea, South Korea in 1950, we were not defending democracy, but we were defending the opportunity for eventual democracy. I would like to, see, here's where I differ from most people, and I'm probably the only person you've ever heard who will admit this. Most people are saying measured response. Let the punishment fit the crime. The crime was shooting down an airliner. Let's see, airline, look under the A's. Airlines, airports, airline pilots. Let's limit the sanctions to that. And then some people say, no, let's cut off wheat. Let's be very, very harsh. I am saying I am not interested in a measured response. I want this incident to trigger an American posture that I think we should have adopted long, long ago. I want to use here's my big confession. I want this aircraft incident used as a pretext to do what I think we should have done in the mid-1950s when we saw communism's habit and then pattern and then determination to arm rebels who would advance the communist cause all over the world and wage so-called wars of liberation and so forth. A point Bill Rusher made when when the cargo of that plane was seized in Brazil. Remember that? The plane, the Libyan plane to Nicaragua, they broke. How do you like that? I'd forgotten about that. The world thought that was an outrage, remember? Yeah, the world thought that was an outrage. The Brazilians going into a Libyan plane on the ground and examining the cargo. Well, the cargo was full of guns for the Nicaraguan communists and the El Salvador communists. And there were a number of American arms. Now, Bill Rusher is the only columnist smart enough to understand this. I've got to admit, it went right between my legs. Why were there American arms in the shipment of communist arms from the Soviet Union by way of Libya to Brazil and then on to El Salvador and Nicaragua? Why American arms? Do you remember?
I never saw it, but I can't think of why would there be American? Tell me.
There were American arms so that when these American newsmen go down and slip across the lines and visit, you know, in the mountains, Herbert Matthews style, with the communist rebels, they can say, what do you mean communist influence? They're armed with American rifles captured from government anti-communist troops. Okay? So I am willing, enlist me as a minority of one. I'll bet you from sea to shining sea, there's nobody else who will put it into words. I don't want to measure responses to the airliner. I want it to serve as a pretext to get us into the posture where we should have been since the mid-1950s anyhow.
I think that's a splendid idea.